She didn't get a chance to breathe. The moment she stepped forward, the sound hit her, not a noise, not an echo, but a presence, slamming into her chest like something invisible had rushed straight at her. She staggered. The sound followed. Low, wrong, too close to be distant, too far to be near, like it was inside her ears and behind her at the same time. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a creature. It was intent. Her pulse spiked. The sound sharpened, splitting into two tones, one vibrating through her ribs, the other whispering along the back of her skull. She spun around, but nothing was there. The air behind her dropped. Cold, immediate, predatory. She froze. The sound rose again, this time with a jagged edge that scraped across her nerves like it was testing her reaction. Not calling to her, not warning her, studying her. Her breath hitched. The sound cut off. Silence. Then something exhaled directly behind her, not warm, not human, just a single, heavy release of air that carried no breath at all. She didn't turn. She couldn't, because whatever was behind her wasn't waiting for her to look. It was waiting for her to move. She moved. The thing behind her moved faster. Not footsteps, not a rush of air, just a shift, a sudden displacement of space that made her stomach drop like she'd stepped off a ledge. She spun around. Nothing, but the sound hit her again, a sharp, slicing tone that cut straight through her hearing, bypassing her ears entirely. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her knees buckled. The sound wasn't around her. It was inside her. She grabbed the wall to steady herself, but her hand slipped, not on moisture, not on dust, but on something warm that hadn't been there a second ago. She looked down. Her palm was streaked with a thin smear of dark red. Her breath caught. The sound rose behind her, a low, vibrating growl that didn't belong to anything human. It wasn't angry. It wasn't warning her. It was hungry. She backed away slowly. The growl followed, matching her pace exactly, like it was pressed against the back of her neck without touching her skin. Then it inhaled. A long, deliberate pull of air that wasn't breath at all. It was sampling her, dragging the scent of her fear into something she couldn't see. Her pulse hammered. The growl shifted. Closer, lower, sharper. Then a single, cold whisper slid across the back of her skull. Not a voice, not a word, just a sound shaped like intent. Move. Run. Be hunted. She didn't think. She ran. And the thing behind her didn't chase. It followed, step for step, breath for breath, like it wanted her to know. It could take her whenever it wanted. It just wasn't done playing yet. She ran hard. The sound didn't chase her. It stayed on her, glued to the back of her skull like a second heartbeat that wasn't hers. Every step she took, it matched. Every breath she dragged in, it echoed. Then it stopped. Not behind her, in front of her. She froze mid-stride, her body locking up before her mind caught up. The air ahead of her thickened, not fog, not heat, just a sudden, crushing density that made her lungs seize. The sound rose out of it. Low, wet, close. She stepped back. The sound followed. A shape flickered at the edge of her vision, not a figure, not a shadow, just a smear of darkness that moved wrong, like it was sliding across a surface she couldn't see. Her pulse hammered. The smear sharpened. It didn't form a face. It didn't form a body. It formed teeth. Not physical, not solid, just the outline, a jagged, impossible grin hanging in the air, vibrating with the same sound that had been stalking her since she entered the room. The grin widened. The sound deepened. Her breath caught in her throat as the air behind her dropped again, colder, heavier, like something massive had leaned in close enough to touch her spine without making contact. She didn't turn. She didn't have to. A second grin opened behind her. Wider, lower, hungrier. The sound split into two tones, one in front of her, one behind her, vibrating through her bones like they were tuning forks. She whispered, barely audible, "Please don't." Both grins snapped shut at the same time. The sound cut out. Silence. Then something whispered directly into her ear. Not a voice, not a breath, just a shape of sound that carried one clear meaning. Run again. We like it. She didn't run this time. She bolted, tearing down the hallway with her breath ripping out of her chest. The two grins followed, not chasing, not lunging, just sliding through the air beside her like they were painted onto reality and she was the one moving wrong. The sound rose again. Not a growl, not a whisper, a laugh, thin, sharp, too close. She stumbled, catching herself on her hands. The moment her palms hit the floor, the laugh cut off, replaced by a low, vibrating hum that crawled up her arms like static. She jerked her hands back. The hum stayed. It clung to her skin, buzzing under the surface like something had seeped into her nerves. She slapped her arm, trying to shake it off, but the vibration only spread, up her wrist, across her elbow, into her shoulder. Her breath hitched. The grins drifted closer. One hovered inches from her face, the jagged outline trembling with anticipation. The other slid behind her, lowering until it hovered at the back of her neck like a blade waiting for permission. She froze. The hum inside her bones sharpened, a sudden, stabbing pulse that made her vision blur. She gasped, clutching her arm as the vibration twisted into something colder, something deliberate. Something alive. The front grin widened. The back grin lowered. The hum inside her bones pulsed again, harder, deeper, like it was sinking with something outside her body. She whispered, "Stop." Both grins snapped toward her at the same time. The hum cut out. Silence. Then a single, cold breath slid across her cheek, not from a mouth, not from a body, just a presence leaning close enough to claim her. And a sound whispered directly into her ear, "We weren't laughing at you. We were laughing because you finally heard us." The whisper hadn't even faded before the air beside her split. Not a tear, not a ripple, a slice, a thin, vertical line of darkness that opened like something was dragging a claw through the air itself. The grin in front of her snapped toward it, trembling with excitement. She backed up fast. The slice widened. A hand slid out. Not a human hand. Not an animal hand. Just a long, impossibly thin shape with too many joints, bending the wrong way as it reached blindly into the room like it already knew exactly where she was. Her breath caught. The second grin behind her dropped lower, hovering near her shoulder like it was waiting for the hand to touch her first. The hand twitched. Then it snapped toward her. She threw herself sideways, hitting the ground hard. The hand missed her by inches, slicing through the air with a sound like metal scraping bone. The grins shrieked, not angry, not frustrated. Delighted, she scrambled backward. The hand followed, dragging itself out of the slice until an entire arm emerged, long, thin, bending in angles that made her stomach twist. It didn't reach for her again. It pointed, directly at her. The grins went silent. The air dropped 10 degrees in a single breath. Then the arm curled its fingers inward, one by one, until the entire hand formed a slow, deliberate beckoning motion. Not asking her to come closer, daring her to run. She didn't move. The arm twitched, the grins widened, and the whisper returned, right against her ear, cold enough to sting. "Good. Don't make this easy." The arm didn't wait for her to move. It lunged, not fast, instant. One moment it was pointing at her, the next its fingers were inches from her throat, joints bending backward as if they were trying to hook into her skin. She threw herself sideways. The fingers scraped past her neck, not touching her, but close enough that the air burned where they passed. The grins shrieked again, high, sharp, delighted, like they were cheering the near miss. She scrambled backward on her hands. The arm followed, not crawling, not reaching, just gliding, joints twisting in ways that made her stomach twist with them. It didn't grab her, it didn't strike, it hovered over her chest, waiting. Her breath hitched, the arm twitched once, a tiny, precise movement, and the grin snapped into silence. The air around her tightened, pressing against her ribs like invisible hands were testing how easily they could crush her. She whispered, "Please." The arm bent down slowly, impossibly, until its fingers hovered right above her sternum. The joints clicked softly, one by one, like they were aligning for something final. Then the whisper came back. Not behind her, not beside her, inside her ear, cold, sharp, amused. "We don't want your fear. We want your reaction." The arm pressed down, not enough to break her, just enough to let her know it could. And the grins opened wide. The arm didn't press harder. It vanished, not pulled back, not withdrawn, just gone, like it had never existed at all. She gasped, the sudden absence of pressure hitting her harder than the touch itself. Her ribs ached from the tension she'd been holding. Then the sound returned, not behind her, not beside her, inside her chest. A deep, vibrating thrum that made her heart stutter, skip, then slam back into rhythm like something else had grabbed it and squeezed. She clutched her sternum. The grins flickered. One appeared inches from her face, trembling with excitement. The other hovered near her shoulder, vibrating like it was barely holding itself together. The thrum inside her chest sharpened. Her breath hitched. The sound wasn't mimicking her heartbeat. It was overwriting it. She dropped to her knees, choking on air that suddenly felt too thick to swallow. The grins drifted lower, circling her like sharks tasting blood in the water. The whisper slid across the inside of her skull, cold, amused, cruel. "There it is. The moment you break." She shook her head violently, tears blurring her vision. "Stop." The thrum cut off. Her heart stopped with it. Just for a second. Just long enough for her vision to go white at the edges. The grin snapped wide. The whisper came back, softer this time, almost tender, again. Her heart slammed back into motion so hard she nearly collapsed forward. The grins shivered with delight. And the whisper finished, right against the inside of her ear. "We're not here to kill you. We're here to see what you do when you think we will." Her heart slammed once more, hard enough to make her vision jolt, and then the air in front of her buckled. Not a shape, not a shadow, just a sudden, violent distortion, like something enormous had leaned in so close the world couldn't keep its outline straight. The grin snapped toward it. They weren't smiling anymore, they were waiting. The distortion thickened, pulling inward, tightening into a single point that pulsed like a heartbeat, not hers, not human, just a slow, heavy thud that made her ribs ache. She backed up. The point pulsed again. The air behind her pulsed with it. Her breath hitched. The sound returned, not a whisper, not a growl, but a low, dragging scrape, like something was pulling itself across a surface she couldn't see. The scrape grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was right behind her teeth. She clamped her jaw shut. The scrape didn't stop. It shifted, sliding from her jaw to her skull, vibrating through her bones like it was trying to find the best way inside. She dropped to her knees, hands over her ears. It didn't help. The scrape slid down her spine. Slow, deliberate, hungry, the distortion in front of her pulsed one last time, then opened, not like a door, not like a tear, but like something had simply decided to be visible. A shape stepped out, not a body, not a creature, just weight, a crushing, suffocating presence that hit her so hard her breath left her in a single, broken gasp. The grins trembled, the scrape stopped, the presence leaned close enough for her skin to prickle, and a single, cold sound slid into her mind, clear and sharp as a blade. Now we touch. The presence didn't move toward her. It collapsed onto her. A sudden, crushing weight pressed against her chest. Not a hand, not a body, just pressure, dense and cold, sinking straight through her skin like it had every right to be inside her. She choked. Her lungs seized, refusing to pull in air. The world blurred at the edges as the pressure slid deeper, threading itself between her ribs like it was searching for a place to settle. The grins hovered inches from her face. Silent, still, watching. The pressure twisted. Her back arched violently as something cold and sharp dragged itself across the inside of her chest, not cutting, not tearing, just testing, like it was tracing the shape of her heart from the inside. She clawed at the air, at her own skin, at anything she could reach. Nothing helped. The presence pulsed once, a deep, heavy thud that wasn't her heartbeat, and her vision went white for a split second. Then the whisper came back. Not in her ear, not in her mind, inside her breath, a cold vibration riding the air she couldn't inhale. Now you feel us. Her body convulsed. The pressure slid upward, curling around her throat like invisible fingers tightening just enough to make her panic spike. The grins trembled with anticipation, the jagged outlines flickering like they were feeding on her reaction. She tried to scream. Nothing came out. The presence leaned closer, not physically, not visibly, just a sudden, suffocating closeness that made her skin crawl. And the whisper finished, low and satisfied. Good. You're finally reacting the way we wanted. The presence didn't wait for her to breathe. It pushed. A cold, needle-thin pressure slid beneath her skin, not piercing, not cutting, just entering, like it had found a seam in her body she didn't know existed. Her entire chest seized as the sensation crawled upward, threading itself along her nerves like it was stitching something into her. She gasped. The air didn't move. The grins hovered inches from her face, trembling with a hunger they didn't bother to hide. The jagged outlines flickered with every pulse of the presence inside her, sinking to her panic like it was feeding off the rhythm. The pressure climbed higher, her throat tightened, her vision blurred. She clawed at her neck, desperate to pull something out, anything, but her fingers passed through empty air. The presence wasn't on her skin. It was under it. A cold vibration spread across her collarbone, then down her spine, each pulse sharper than the last. Her back arched involuntarily as the sensation dug deeper, curling around her nerves like it was learning the shape of her from the inside. The whisper returned, not in her ear, not in her mind, inside her pulse. A low, satisfied murmur riding the beat of her heart. Now you understand what we are. Her breath hitched. The presence twisted. Her body jerked violently as the cold sensation wrapped around her spine, tightening just enough to make her legs buckle. She collapsed to her knees, hands shaking uncontrollably. The grins drifted closer. One hovered at her cheek, the other at her throat. The presence pulsed again, deeper, heavier, and her vision dimmed at the edges. The whisper slid through her blood like a blade. You're not reacting anymore. You're changing. Her body didn't move on its own. It moved because something else decided it should. A sharp jolt shot down her spine, snapping her upright like a puppet yanked by invisible strings. Her arms jerked out to her sides, fingers splayed, trembling violently as the presence tightened its grip beneath her skin. She tried to pull them back. They didn't listen. Her breath hitched as her jaw clenched hard enough to make her teeth ache. The presence pulsed again, and her head snapped to the left, then the right, like it was testing the range of motion. The grins hovered close, watching, waiting, thrilled. A cold vibration crawled up her throat, forcing a sound out of her, not a scream, not a gasp, just a broken, involuntary choke that didn't belong to her voice at all. Her eyes widened. The presence pushed deeper, her right hand curled into a fist. Her left hand opened wide. Her shoulders rolled back with a slow, deliberate precision that made her stomach twist. She wasn't being controlled, she was being demonstrated. The whisper slid through her chest again, cold and satisfied. See? You move better when we decide how. Her knees buckled. The presence didn't let her fall. It held her upright, spine rigid, limbs trembling, breath shallow. The grins drifted closer, the jagged outlines flickering with anticipation. The presence pulsed once more. Her fingers twitched, her jaw locked, her breath froze in her throat. And the whisper finished, low and cruel. Now let's see what else your body can do. Her body didn't wait for her mind. It moved. A sharp, electric jolt shot down her spine, snapping her arm upwards so fast her shoulder popped. Her fingers curled into a rigid claw, trembling violently as the presence tightened its grip beneath her skin. She tried to pull it back. Her arm didn't listen. Her other hand jerked upward next, slamming against her own chest like something inside her was trying to knock its way out. Her breath hitched as her ribs vibrated under the pressure, each pulse sharper than the last. The grins hovered close, silent, thrilled, expectant, her jaw clenched so hard her teeth ached. The presence pulsed again, and her head snapped backward, exposing her throat like she was being presented to something she couldn't see. She gasped. The air didn't move. Her fingers twitched violently, then flattened against her chest, pressing down as if the presence wanted to feel her heartbeat from the outside while it manipulated it from within. The whisper slid through her blood again, cold, amused, cruel, good. Now let's see how far you bend. Her knees buckled. The presence didn't let her fall. It held her upright, spine rigid, limbs trembling, breath shallow. Her body jerked again, a sharp, involuntary motion that made her gasp in pain. The grins drifted closer, the jagged outlines flickering with anticipation. The presence pulsed once more. Her fingers curled, her breath froze, her vision dimmed, and the whisper finished, low and satisfied, "You break beautifully." Her body didn't break, it folded. A violent jolt snapped through her spine, bending her forward so sharply she felt the breath punch out of her lungs. Her hands slammed against the floor, fingers splayed, trembling as the presence tightened its grip beneath her skin. She tried to lift her head. It didn't move. Her neck locked in place, held at an angle that made her vision swim. The presence pulsed again, and her back arched in the opposite direction, a brutal, involuntary motion that left her gasping. The grins hovered close, silent, shaking, hungry. Her arms jerked next, elbows bending backward just a fraction too far, not enough to injure her, just enough to make her feel the edge of what could happen if the presence stopped holding back. A cold vibration crawled up her spine. Her breath froze. Her fingers curled into the floor, nails scraping against nothing as the presence twisted deeper, threading itself through her nerves like it was rewiring her from the inside out. She tried to scream. Her jaw didn't open. The whisper slid through her blood again, cold, delighted, cruel. There it is. The moment you stop fighting. Her vision blurred. Her limbs trembled. The presence pulsed once more, harder this time, forcing her body into a rigid, unnatural stillness. She felt her heartbeat stutter, then slam back into rhythm like something else had taken hold of it. The grins drifted closer. One hovered at her cheek, the other at her throat. The whisper finished, low and satisfied. Good. Now we can begin. The presence pulsed once more, and her whole body locked in place, not frozen, not held, just claimed. The grins hovered inches from her skin, trembling like they were waiting for a signal she couldn't hear. Her breath shuddered. The presence slid back, peeling itself out of her nerves one cold thread at a time. Her limbs dropped, her spine loosened. She collapsed to her hands, shaking, gasping like she'd been underwater for too long. The grins dimmed, the sound faded, but the whisper stayed, low, satisfied, echoing from somewhere deep inside her chest. We're not finished. We're just inside now. Her breath caught. The episode ends on her realizing the worst part. The silence she hears isn't silence at all. It's them, waiting.